Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. I am, as always, your very grateful host. Folks, I just want to thank you up front for everything you've been doing lately. All of the shares, the likes, the subscribes, the hundreds of DMs. I'm going to get to them. I promise I'm going to get to them all. I'm going to respond to every single one of them personally. If I've missed you, don't feel like it's personal. I promise I'm going to get to you. But a lot of you folks have had a lot to say. You guys have commented on our guests. You've commented on our subject matter. You've even commented on the fact that I used a different cup a couple of episodes ago. I love it. I love that you're that involved with this. That's fantastic. But we have the cup back today. So everybody can relax. You can call off the dogs. Everything is good. As we get rolling here, you guys all know what time it is. We got to pay a couple of bills. So let me take a sip of my preferred beverage. Man, that's good. I just fired this thing up right before this episode. We are doing awesome, and you guys all know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Go check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean bean. It's a fantastic cup of joe. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans. And you know how important that is here at the Power Man, and that's one of the reasons why we support them the way that we do. Folks, it's Freedom Hill Coffee, at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Go check them out. Tell them Power Man sent you. All right? Let me get another sip of this so I can keep up with this young buck on the other side of the table from me. All right, there we go. I am ready. The pipes are clear. I'll be drinking this throughout just to try and keep up because everybody knows I'm getting a little long in the tooth now. But we're going to be just fine today. We got a fantastic guest. This guy is bursting with energy. His backdrop is all lit up. He's all lit up. He came on today ready and raring to go. I thought he was going to have to go do some push-ups before he jumped onto the mic, but we're ready to go. So let me introduce, and please welcome to the podcast, father of three, two-time author, men's coach, financial advisor, host of the Derelict Podcast. Please welcome Josh Tomeoni to our podcast today. Josh, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I might actually still have to take a break and do push-ups here in a few minutes, so we'll see. But I
You know,
appreciate. I also appreciate you calling me a young buck because now my oldest of those three kids is 12, and he is very much a middle schooler. So he loves reminding me how old I am, like on a daily basis. So I love being called a young buck these days. Great.
it's
I'll
all
take it.
relative, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
all relative, right?
That's
Right.
right.
You
I
know,
love
my
it.
mom was complaining about how young I am the other day, and my son complains about how old I am, right? It's all relative.
All right. Well, Josh, hey, tell all of our listeners, if they haven't heard of you, and some of them probably have, if they haven't heard of you already, who is, Josh Tomeoni? What are you about? And what brings you here today, brother?
Sure, absolutely. Well, you already mentioned a couple things about me. So the thing that brings me here is because I've been on this journey now for a bit. So I should back up. The thing that brings me here is failure. Let's start with that.
All right.
I think failure has a very negative connotation for most people. Most people don't like to use the word failure to say that they fail. And I think that there's a reason for that. I think that most people don't want to use that word because failure brings a sense of shame, right?
For sure.
It's just that icky, like, oh, I am a failure. I am a
Right.
bad person. There's something wrong with me. When in reality, if you look up the definition of failure, all failure means is that you had expected or a goal that you were trying to achieve or something that you were trying to achieve, something that you were trying to accomplish that you didn't accomplish. That's all failure is. So, in that simple definition, if I walk across the room and I stumble, I failed. But we don't think of it that way. We think of, oh, I'm a failure. No, 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 you're not a failure. You just didn't make it across the room the way that you wanted to make. You just didn't close the deal necessarily the way you wanted to do it. The conversation with a friend didn't necessarily go the way you wanted it to. That's okay. Tell me one successful person that hasn't failed a million times in their life. We all have.
Right.
It's what you do with the failure that defines you. And it used to be that I fought failure so much that I didn't take any risk and I didn't do the things that I knew I was called to. And then I would say I've been in this awakening for around the last 7 years or so, where I realized, oh, my failures are actually my superpower. The divorce that I went through, the business failures that I went through, the times where I had to learn how to be real and authentic as a guy and have a real, true, authentic connection with other guys, with other women, whatever it is. That's what brings me here. It was that so-called midlife awakening that I've gone through the last several years to realize what is my mission? What is my purpose? Why am I actually on this planet? And what I realized is the reason I'm on this planet, this is the biggest answer to your question, I guess. The reason I'm on this planet is to help men get through the most difficult, darkest days of their life, which for many men is their divorce. It was for me. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a lot of people that were there. I had friends, I had a therapist, I had attorneys, I had a good support system, but I didn't have anybody that was helping me see what's on the other side of this. What does version 2.0 of you look like? I thought my divorce was the end of my life, Rory. I really thought my life was over, man. Literally, man, if I didn't have kids, I might have ended my life. That's how much my marriage meant to me. It didn't even cross my mind because I have children. I would never do that to them. But without kids, I think it might have. I really do. That's how much my marriage meant to me. That's how much I thought it defined who I was. And I know a lot of guys might not be that extreme when they're going through their divorce, but whether it's a friendly divorce or it's a very, very bad divorce, it still is rough. It's really difficult in the middle of that to try to see what does it look like on the other side. And it's amazing to me in this world that men will hire a coach to get six-pack abs, and they'll hire a coach to increase their business. They'll hire a coach to make more money so they can buy that McLaren or whatever, but they won't hire a coach to help them through the most difficult time of their life. They'll spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions, on an attorney, but they won't spend a few $1,000s helping them have somebody give them a version 2.0 of their future. So that's really why I'm here. That's why I exist on this planet, I firmly believe.
I love that. And, when I first heard about you, when you and I first started communicating, that was one of the things that kind of jumped off the page because, I'm in the men's space like you are, and I haven't seen somebody focusing on men the divorce is now a thing. There's plenty of guys who are doing therapy and life coaching and everything else to try and avoid the divorce. But you come in after the divorce is now real. It is a thing. And men are just getting beaten to a pulp. They're at their lowest, probably than they've ever been in their lives. And yeah, there is no help out there. So I guess a couple questions. First of all, why do you think that is being in the space? Why do you suppose there aren't, like a lot of other coaches out there who are doing this kind of thing? Um, let's start with that.
Sure, that's a great question. I've asked myself that question many times. It also gives me a unique challenge in what I do because it's not real well known. I can't walk around and just say, "Hey, I'm a divorce coach for men," and people are like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense."
You have to
Most people, it
explain it a
doesn't make
lot.
sense,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, men in general. So let's talk about the majority of men. The majority of men are majority masculine traits, right? We all have feminine traits, we all have masculine, but the majority of men have mainly masculine traits. And I would say the majority of men with mainly masculine traits are figure out a problem, figure out a solution, go towards the solution, done, right? So if I'm going through a friendly divorce, I just have to figure out how do I get the paperwork done? How do I have conversations with my wife, which will soon be my ex-wife, about how do we deal with the kids? How do we deal with the money, etc. Very rare percentage of people actually are able to do that. The people that
Right.
are, good for them. I had a friend like that. Great. The downside, though, by the way, for people that are in that space, don't get too comfortable in that space because as has happened to my friend the last couple of years, that was really how it started. And that was years ago now. And now it's coming back to bite him in the ass
Mm.
because of the fact that he didn't have the attorney, he didn't have the other team members that have actually made sure that every single thing, the T was crossed, the I was dotted, etc., to make sure that there weren't going to be any issues later on. And now he's having issues with that. And guess what? Now attorneys are involved. So be really careful as far as that is the case. But if you have a contentious divorce, which most people do, and it involves courts or mediators or attorneys, depending on the state you live in, depending on the rules, some states require mediators, some don't. If you're in that space, which is the majority of divorces, what I think a lot of men don't realize is that they don't realize that the attorney is not the savior of them during their divorce process.
Mm.
Attorneys are a very good thing. I'm not downgrading attorneys whatsoever. I had very good attorneys during my divorce process, went through a few of them, spent 6+ figures on attorneys. So I value attorneys. I appreciate
Yeah.
attorneys. I don't necessarily appreciate the bill I had to pay, but that's another story. That being said, attorney's job is to get you through the divorce process, to make sure that the paperwork is correct, and to make sure that people compromise enough to be able to move on with their life and to be able to charge you as much in the process.
There you go.
Doesn't make them bad or evil. That's the business model.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not denigrating that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the model. So if that's the model, where do you go to say, hey, how do I get through this aspect? Or, as an example, even finances. Let's talk about easy things first. For the logical, here's the first thing I'll say to you. Attorneys, terrible with money, terrible with finances. They don't understand it. Courts don't understand it. Judges don't understand it. If you have a court or a judge or an attorney look at your tax return, God forbid you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, they have to, God forbid you have retirement accounts, God forbid you have anything that's out of the ordinary, real estate, they do not know how to calculate it to actually make it fair and equitable between you and your future ex-spouse. It is something they do not know how to do. They have not been trained to do it. Attorneys, when they go through their training, don't have any training on this. And trust me, they don't know what they're talking about. This is coming from a guy who's been a financial planner for almost 2 decades now. I started 19 years ago. Trust
Right.
me, they do not know what they're talking about. Again, doesn't make them a bad person. It's not their area of expertise.
Right.
So the very first thing that I encourage guys to do is you also have to have a financial expert on your side during this process. You have to have somebody that is trained and understands how to look at even just dividing assets equitably and fairly. Otherwise, as a man, this is going to be a strong opinion that a lot of people are going to disagree with. That's fine. As a man, you're going to get screwed more than a woman. You just will. That's what the statistics show.
Right.
So if you do not have somebody that really understands your finances, you're going to get screwed. I promise. You will. So have that. The other thing that a lot of men do is if they're, let's say, really open-minded 2025 men, maybe they have a therapist, right? Maybe they have somebody that's actually helping them with their stuff. Well, a therapist's job is to help you with your trauma from the past. A therapist's job is to help you from your past move into the present. Their job, they're not educated, they're not qualified, and they're not good at helping you move from the present to the future. That's not their
Interesting.
job.
Okay.
Their job is to help you with trauma, to help you with issues, unresolved stuff from the past to bring you present. Now, what's interesting is I'll post things like this on social media and I'll have people disagree with me every once in a while. But you know, the people that disagree with me are always the therapist. They're always like, no, we're great at moving people in the future. Really? Rory, have you ever met anybody that's been in therapy for 5, 10, 20, 30 years?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. They've been in therapy for a long time, so yeah,
So
I
my
suppose.
question is, if it's working, why are you still there?
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
are you there to heal, to actually move forward?
Right.
Or are you still talking about your childhood trauma 20 years from now?
Right.
Is that healthy? Is that beneficial? Now, this is coming from
Yeah.
a guy who went to 6 years of therapy. I'm a huge fan of therapists. I'm not against therapists. It was extremely important for me because I had a lot of stuff from my past that I had to move on. But once I was able to resolve that, goodbye, therapist. You're
Hmm.
no longer any use to me. So that might be helpful, but again, their job is not to help you going through a divorce. Their job is to help you with the past stuff to try to bring you present, which still does not give you a vision for the future. It still does not give you that 2.0 vision of yourself.
Right.
It's just impossible to do. That's what coaches are there, whether it's me or somebody else. A coach, and like you, right, Rory? Like our job is
Right.
to help bring somebody with whatever problem, whatever thing is in their way, whether it's a limiting mindset, belief, action, etc., to say, here's the thing. Let me illuminate that for you and then help you with action to move forward. That's the role of a coach. That's not the role of a therapist. So just understanding that difference. So you mentioned at the beginning that I'm the author of 2 books. So one of those books I'll just mention briefly, and that is The 5 Traps Men Face When Going Through a Divorce and How to Triumph Over Them. There's specifically 5 things that men need to look out specifically while they're going through the divorce. Technically, these 5 traps would actually apply to women as well, but I focus mainly on men because that's who I work with. The
Okay.
second trap is having the wrong team. And I talk about this exact topic about the differences between what is an attorney's job, what's the judge's job, what's a
Uh,
mediator's job, what's a financial person's job, what's a coach's job. They're all different roles. And what I encourage men to do is have an advocate for you, not an advocate for getting the court stuff done and moving you forward, which is the attorney's job, not an advocate for removing all your past trauma, which is the therapist's job. Have an advocate for you moving forward. Because, man, I grew up in a very Christian, conservative Christian household that didn't believe in divorce, that said you stayed married no matter what, didn't matter what anybody did. Every once in a
sure.
while, somebody would be like, well, if there's adultery or something, you can, but for the most part, you do not get divorced. So that was my modality going into marriage. And it never changed till the day I got served divorce papers. That was always my modality. I was going to figure out how to make this work. I think there's actually some unhealthy aspects to that, which we could probably have a whole nother podcast episode about.
Probably.
But the reason I bring that up is that even though it was not the intention there, I still had to get to a point where I had to realize how can I even move forward? Because man, I thought my life was over. I really did. I was like, I don't even know how to, I don't even know how to. And when you're going through divorce, have you been through a divorce before,
I
Rory?
have actually, yeah. Yeah, I've been
So,
through it.
so tell me this. Did you ever experience just like overwhelm going through the divorce where it just felt like I just don't even know how to deal with this stuff right now?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, and quite often, actually, as I was going through the divorce.
It's impossible. I've never met anybody that didn't, even if it was like a friendly divorce.
Yeah, and mine
The
was not.
kiss. Yeah, mine wasn't either.
So, yeah,
But even friendly divorces, guys that I talk to, it's the same way because we all have these, one way I describe it often is we have these buckets. So think of all of your energy in these four buckets, right? You have emotional, spiritual, physical, financial. Okay? Those
sure.
four buckets. If I'm going through this really difficult divorce, whether it's friendly or contentious, odds are, if those should be spread 25% each, most of it is in my emotional bucket because it's just so overwhelming. There's so much to pay attention to. So if 70, 80, 90% is in that bucket and I got 20% left over for three additional buckets,
Right.
my kids are getting ignored, which by the way is the third trap in the men facing divorce, ignoring your kids, not being present with your kids. My work might be getting ignored, or the opposite. I might become a workaholic and be all consumed with it and not even focus on what's healthy for me, and then continue to drive and drive and drive until I have a panic attack and then a heart attack and then I'm dead at 40, right? There could be that.
Okay, stop talking about me. All right, and let's just move on.
It's I've only had one panic attack in my life, and it happened when I was so incredibly stressed when I was going through this process. It also involved some medication that increased my blood pressure. It's a long story, but it was so shocking to me. I felt like I was having a heart attack, and I we men, we carry so much that we don't let go,
Right.
that we don't know how to just breathe out and just release and remove and get rid of that tension. And that really happens when we're going through a traumatic event like a divorce. And one of the biggest things that I coach men through is just how to be there, how to be present, how to sit with what's going on but not stay with it, right? How to feel that emotion but not stay with it, how to move on past that, how to still have a vision for your future, a vision for your ideal mate in the future, a vision for how you want to be a dad to your kids if you have kids, to make sure that you're not getting screwed in the process. Because believe it or not, man, it's amazing to me that I spent six plus figures on attorneys and they still didn't necessarily help me not getting screwed financially through my divorce. I mean, I thank God. I'm incredibly grateful that I am who I am because as a financial planner for, again, almost 2 decades, I knew what to look for. And I had to go back and argue with the attorney and the court and everything else about their calculations because they were all wrong. Like here's a simple example, Rory. Most people in this country, especially, have pre-tax retirement accounts. The most common being a 401k.
Sure. Right.
And in pre-tax retirement accounts, One of the things that's often not considered in divorce is the tax consequences. And not just the fact that taxes haven't been charged on that money yet, but let's say let's say that the man is making more than the woman. This could apply the other way as well. But let's say the man is traditionally making a lot more than the woman is. Okay. If the man's making a lot more, guess what's going to happen to his tax bracket after they get divorced? It's going to skyrocket. He's going to jump up in tax brackets. She's going to drop down if their income stays the same. So one of the things to consider then is if the 401k gets separated and I as a man am in the 50% tax bracket and now my ex-wife is in the 20% tax bracket, is it fair to divide that up 50-50?
Yeah, absolutely not. You're very
Of
right.
course not. But
Right.
that conversation's never even had from attorneys or the court or anything else. Not even addressed.
That's crazy.
That could be a big, think about it this way. If there's $1 million in there, the difference between 50% and 20% is $300,000, just as an example. That's a big difference.
Huge.
You might
Absolutely.
want to have somebody looking at that. And the attorney doesn't understand that either because I don't know why. Trust me, like it baffles me still that attorneys don't understand how to look at this.
See, this is one of the reasons why I'm glad that we're having this conversation and why I'm very, very happy to help spread the message of what you're doing is because I know that when I was going through my divorce, I got my attorney and I was like, okay, I'm represented. And honestly, I just put it all in his hands and said, here you go. And honestly, I had a really
Which is
bad
logical and
experience.
smart, by the way.
Yeah.
It's what most of us do. I did the
Right.
same thing.
So I think, yeah, I think most guys go in and they just, once they have an attorney, they go, hey, man, just, handle it. Try and get me the best deal you can. Let me know, where we are. And honestly, we're beaten to a pulp so badly that it's just like, I just want the beating to stop. Very few of us, I think, go into that with the mindset of, I'm going to take a proactive approach and I'm going to, protect myself and I'm going to bring in experts and that kind of thing. So a lot of what you're talking about requires some education for men who are going through the divorce, so that they
100%.
even know that this is possible. So I mean, again, getting the word out, for you, I know is a big deal to let these people know that you're even here offering this kind of service. How do you handle that part of it? That you've got to just educate these guys from the get-go because half the time they don't even know what they need.
Well, and you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right,
I had some illuminating experiences going through my own divorce, and I have with men that I've coached as well, where it's like the attorneys don't even talk about just simple things that you should pay attention to make sure you get as much time with your kids afterwards. So again, let's
right,
let's go kind of back to that. And again, this is not everybody's situation. This was my situation, so I'll bring up this as my example, and that is that I was the one that worked outside the home. She was the one that stayed home with the kids. So we had a very, quote unquote traditional model as far as that goes. So because of that, she was already going to get more time with the kids. She was already going to get custody. She was already going to get more time with the kids. It was
right.
just already going to be in her favor because the courts, as much as they've progressed since the 50s, still favor women. They just do. Look at
100%.
the statistics. So that being said, I just ended up finding out because I asked good questions, thankfully, but my attorney didn't just offer it. Well, what are the things I need to do to make sure I get as much time with my kids as possible? Because my goal was I want as much time with my kids as possible. What I wanted was 50-50 because I thought that was fair because I'm a person, she's a person. Why would I get less than 50%? Well, the courts basically never give that to men and
No,
women.
they
It's
don't.
very rare. It's very
Right.
rare. There's very few states where they kind of start there. There's some. The state that I live in now, Washington State, actually usually starts there, which is rare, very rare in the United States.
Hmm.
So, but there are things that you can do. There are ways that you can volunteer. There are ways that you can be there with your kids. There are ways that you can make sure that you have more time with your kids. And there are also things to avoid. For the man that ends up leaving the house because his wife asks him to leave the house because of whatever reason, and now all of a sudden he's not getting time with his kids or he's not getting overnights with his kids, which is one of the most important things to look at. If he's not getting overnights with his kids and then they go to court and he has 0 overnights during the week and she has 7 out of 7, guess who's going to get most of the time with the kids?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, the wife,
She is.
absolutely.
But again, attorneys don't necessarily just give this information. I don't know why. Like this should be just something that, but this stuff is where guys get caught. So to answer your question, it's actually a very difficult marketing thing for me. It really is because it's like It's like a computer program coming out before any other computer program comes out. Like you have to sell something that doesn't really exist, but it doesn't
Right.
make sense that it doesn't exist. Because why would you not want somebody to coach you through the most difficult time in your life and make sure that you're not going to get screwed in the process? I just don't understand. But I think the main reason is what you mentioned earlier, Rory, and that is we've been sold a bill of goods that basically what we need is an attorney, and an attorney's going to cover all this.
Right.
And they just don't.
Hmm. I think there's also the presupposition when you go into it. We've had a lot of guys on about men's rights, things like that. A lot of guys talking about the court systems. A lot of guys talking about, how it's a money-making enterprise for the state, and so on and so forth. So I think there's been a lot of that information that's come out lately. So I think another issue is that guys go into their divorce and we assume from moment one that we're screwed. And so maybe that's it too. Maybe we're not looking for help because we don't think there is any.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Even though I didn't have a coach helping me through all this, and it's cost additional years of my life, like it's not really something we're talking about right now, but one of my biggest passions is to be there for guys in the darkest days that they have so that they can save years of their life trying to figure it out themselves.
Nice.
Just as a guide. I'm not the one with the answers. I'm not the one that's going to tell you what to do. We as guys, we don't want somebody to tell us what to do anyway. I'm just going to guide you and say, hey, look, if you do this, you're just going to save years of your life trying to figure it out yourself. Because I'm like the poster child for it, man. Like it took me years to figure this shit out by myself. It just did.
Yeah.
I just had to figure it out. And I'd rather have help guys not take the years to try to figure out. I'd rather you just jumpstart your life right away. Forget taking 3, 4, 5, 10 years trying to figure this stuff out after your divorce. Why not do it sooner?
Right.
Why not? And back to what you said as well, I agree with you. Yeah, if you go into this process thinking, well, I'm screwed no matter what, well, the mind's a powerful thing. You're going to be screwed no matter what. You just are.
Right.
But I'm telling you, if you're a man listening or viewing this podcast right now, and you think that you're screwed through your divorce, you're not. You're not. You don't have to be. You might be if you have that attitude and you don't do anything about it, or you just hire an attorney and you think that's going to be golden. But I'm telling you, you can spend a fraction of what you spend on your attorney. I'm talking a tenth, maybe less of what you spend on your attorney for a coach to help you through the stuff that I think might even matter more than getting the paperwork done.
Right
And
on.
man, I wish I would have had that. I really
I
do.
wish that I would have had somebody like that, like you, frankly, when I was going through mine. And not just because of all of the professional, aspect, but because you really are alone at that point. And you can reach out to a lot of different folks, but people who haven't been through it, it takes one to know one, unfortunately. And people who have not been through it do not get a lot of that pain and suffering and hopelessness that you feel. So I
Absolutely not, brother. Like
yeah,
my story is I have one of my longest standing friends in the world. I guess I have a couple of friends from high school, but one of my longest standing like continual friends is a guy that I've known for just about 20 years now. Awesome brother, love him dearly. And years before my divorce, he went through his. And he went through this very long separation process. Wife cheated on him, the whole nine yards. And then he went through this really long process of trying to get back together with his wife and do everything that he could. And he's just a respectable stand-up guy. I love him dearly. And I tried to be there as much as possible for him. And I remember after my divorce, he was one of my first phone calls. And I was like, man, I'm sorry. He's like, you're sorry for what? I was like, man, I just didn't know how to be there for you. Like if you don't experience, like if you don't go through it, you just don't. It's like somebody, the classic example, Rory, is that young couple that has a dog. They're like, oh yeah, I'm ready for kids. I have a dog. You have no idea what it's like to have children.
you have no
No, I
idea.
mean, it's not even remotely close. That is not even just because of the fact that you have to leave a party to go feed it. That is not how it works with a child. You can't leave a baby alone for 3 hours to go to a party and then come back and feed it. Like that's just not how it
Right.
works with a child. You have no idea. Just like to no fault of their own, people that have never been through a divorce don't know how to go through. So You're telling me you're going to go find a coach or an attorney or somebody else that's never been through a divorce to help you through yours? Good luck.
That's one of the things that when I was reading about you, especially, um, and that's one of the things that I really do appreciate about you and what you're doing is that you're the real deal. You've been through it. You actually have experienced this stuff. You're not some, academic who read a book. You didn't just graduate with your degree in this. You know what I mean? You've got a lot of professional backing that helps you. The financial advisor thing must be huge in your line of work for what you do because there isn't any financial advisement going on for the men in divorce cases. But just the fact that you've lived through a rough one, you know what these guys are going through. And that authenticity and that real life experience, it has to be priceless in what you do.
It's going back to what we were talking about earlier with failure. The how do I say this? The biggest, most influential mentors and coaches I've ever had in my life are the ones that have failed at something, figured out a way to make it through, lived authentically through it, came out the other side, became a stronger, better, more fulfilled person after it, and then were able to help me through that.
Right.
And that's how I feel about what I'm doing. Am I complete? No, far from it. I have a lot of things that I wish I was better at, for sure. I have not arrived by any stretch of the imagination, but I've failed at pretty much everything in life. So I have a good, I have a good grasp of how to help you through it. I really do.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I love that. The now I know you wrote the one book, The Five Traps Men Face in Divorce. You've got another one coming out. You want to tell everybody what that is?
I do. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's called The Derelict, which is the name of my podcast and my whole brand. It's called The Derelict: Fight, Fail, Find Manhood. And it's really it's a combination of different topics, anything from codependency to addiction to masculinity, with my own personal stories intermixed. So it's kind of like a memoir mixed with how to find masculinity in today's world, how to really live authentically as yourself. So you asked me before the recording, well, why don't you talk a little bit about derelict? Because it's not a word that a lot of people know,
Right.
or maybe some people do. So most people know the word derelict from the movie Zoolander, if you ever saw the movie Zoolander.
I see. I suffered through it.
There's a scene in Zoolander where he calls it the Derelict campaign, and it's when he dresses up like a bunch of trash. And so go
Yeah.
back go back and watch it. And then what's his name? Owen Wilson's character, I don't remember his character, looks at him and says, "Derelict my balls, Capitan." That's the only phrase that like anybody knows derelict from. I've actually thought about making a shirt of it. I really should still. I haven't yet. With that being said, the reason he dresses up like trash is because derelict means something that's been abandoned, outcast, forsaken, thrown aside. In nautical terms, it's like a broken down ship in the middle of an ocean. And you might wonder, why the hell would you brand yourself as something that is, often associated with bums and people that have just thrown their lives away? Well, the reason why is because I found in my own life, especially through my divorce, I very much felt like a derelict. I very much felt like I was forsaken. I was outcast. I was outcast from my friends. I was outcast from my church group at the time. I was outcast from a lot of the people that I thought were friends and family and connections and everything else. And I now wear it as a badge. And the reason why is because I actually don't see it as a negative thing, because I see it as somebody who's actually just living their authentic selves. And it might not look that way to society. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay not having the polished Instagram where everything that I post is me on a beach with a six pack. Because frankly, who actually has that life? And the people that have that life, I've met plenty of them, aren't really fulfilled or happy on the inside anyway. So why can't we just own our failures? Why can't we just own our mistakes? Why can't we just own the stuff that we go through? And that's, to me, the way that men find out who they really, truly, authentically are. That's how they find their manhood. That's how they find their masculinity. It's not vulnerability, because vulnerability is often related to victimhood. Like, I'm vulnerable, I can't do anything about my situation. Well, that removes all of our power.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of men hesitate against that word, because it seems like a victim word, and I want to be powerful. And I would agree with that. It's authenticity. It's not vulnerability. It's how do I live out my true self in, frankly, a society that tells me my true self is wrong? In a society who often says, no, the answer to toxic masculinity is femininity. No, it's not. The answer to toxic masculinity is authentic masculinity. I would go so far as to say there is no such thing as toxic masculinity, because true masculinity, authentic masculinity, is healthy. It's the courage, it's the strong guys that go and help protect the weak, protect the ones that
Right.
can't, that are vulnerable, protect the ones that can't protect themselves. That's masculinity. Where it gets skewed, I think, in the world today is where people act toxic. So are there people that act toxic? Hell yeah, there are. That has nothing to do with masculinity. That has to do with
Right.
people acting toxic.
I think toxic.
And just because they're acting toxic with quote unquote masculine traits instead of quote unquote feminine traits doesn't mean that that's toxic masculinity. It means it's a masculine man who's acting toxic. Those are two different things. So the point of the book really is to open a dialogue of what true authentic masculinity really means. And I'm really, again, to use the vulnerable word, I'm pretty authentic and vulnerable in the book about some of my stories and the ways that I've screwed up, because I've done all the things under the sun, whether it involves addiction and sex and drugs and rock and roll and that period of my life that I went through, or if it involves the failed marriage or relationships, failing as a parent. But all of those things have made me the man that I am today, and I hope will continue to make me a stronger man in the future. That's my goal. And my goal, honestly, is to have a tribe of brothers that want to do the same thing.
Nice.
And it's slowly building.
Nice.
But my goal is to have a tribe of brothers that can show the world what true authentic masculinity is, and not be put in this kind of toxic, chauvinistic, poisonistic, masculine bucket that a lot of us are put in these days.
I really could not agree with you more on just about everything you just said. I'm just nodding my head going, yep, yep, perfect, beautifully, well said. I agree with you completely on the toxic masculinity idea because, to me, it's always been, well, it's not toxic. The masculinity isn't what's toxic. You're toxic right now.
Right.
And you're trying to blame it, on something else so that you can win. That's really it. I mean, the only
For
people who
sure. I
talk
mean, I
about
mean,
it are the ones
toxic
losing.
femininity is as true as toxic masculinity, but the society never talks about it because for whatever reason, I don't know
Of
why.
course not.
But again, I wouldn't even call femininity itself isn't toxic either. It's
No.
nurturing and caring and protective and all of these beautiful things that femininity is. So again, even that phrase, even if that phrase were popular, I would go against that phrase as well because it's not that. It's people acting toxic. Also, to be really clear, there are no toxic people. That doesn't exist. There are people that act more toxic than others. There are people that allow their insecurities and their inauthentic selves to take over, whether
Hmm.
that means to abuse somebody or to rape somebody or to kill somebody or to do evil things, to manipulate somebody, to gossip, to do whatever. That's them allowing their toxicity to take over. That doesn't mean that they're a toxic person. I truly believe everybody in their core is authentically good and beautiful. That's how I believe we were created. And I believe the only thing that's changed that, again, whether you're a religious person, a spiritual person, you believe in God, you believe in Jesus, you believe in Buddha, you believe in whoever, I don't care. I think really one of the core beliefs within all of those is that there was something at some point that core was good. And if we can authentically reach that core, there's a lot of goodness there. And what falls over that is toxicity, right?
Hmm.
Christians and other religions might call it sin or might call it other things, which, society might call toxicity. They might call addiction. There's a lot of different words for it. It's all the same thing. It's all me not living my authentic self and allowing some sort of insecurity or toxicity to take over.
Interesting. All right. So there's no toxic people. There's just people who are letting the toxicity take over who they are. That all stems from a belief, like you said, that everybody is good and beautiful inside, type of thing. That's interesting. I mean, I like that belief. That's got to be tough to have that belief with what you've been through.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
Because honestly, just reading it and having an idea at someone who's been through something at least similar, it's hell going through that. It's
It is.
absolutely hell, and you question everything. Here's someone
You
that you
know,
thought you were going to spend your whole life with, and that you've maybe confided your, most private thoughts and feelings with, and all of a sudden they want you basically dead.
you know the
You
thing
know?
that well the thing they also this actually is something that I heard before I went through my divorce. So I went through a class and it was a lot of people that were either going through divorce, recently divorced, etc. And one of the things that everybody said in the room that I didn't believe, because I was just going through my divorce at this time, it wasn't even finalized, so I was just in the thick of it. And what everyone told me that had already gone through a divorce, they all told me the same thing. They all said when they broke up with the person that their partner after their divorce. Okay. So they got divorced, they got together with somebody, they broke up with that person. They said break up with that person was harder than their divorce.
Hmm.
And I didn't believe any of them. I was like, how is that possible? This is the most difficult thing I've ever gone through. Now I've been through that. And there are elements of that that I would say are true. And I think the reason why is because if you get to know yourself a little bit after your divorce and you're more authentically yourself, and then you meet somebody that's more authentically themselves, and then you break up, it's even harder than if were kind of in this toxic marriage in the first place.
Hmm.
But here's the thing I'll tell you, man. I've lived plenty of years of my life in bitterness and resentment and anger and frustration against the people that have, quote, hurt me, living in that victim mentality of it's all their fault. I didn't do anything. I still can slip into it sometimes. But for the most part, I don't ever anymore. And the reason why is because I found not only is it not true, because I had plenty to do with the end of those relationships as well. It always takes two people. There's never there's never a victim and somebody who's, the abuser. It's just never 100% one way or the other. It just never is. That doesn't mean that if you're being abused that it's your fault. That's not what I'm saying.
Sure.
I'm just saying you still got into that relationship. So it still takes two to tango. It just does. And man, I spent a lot of time just really being bitter and angry and resentful. And the thing that actually really helped me get through that was going through 12 step. And step 4 is really releasing all that fear and anger and bitterness and resentment. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one is it doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve you or help you at all. Like me. It didn't serve me. Somebody who is if you're Rory, if you or anybody watching this, if you're holding on to bitterness, I promise you one thing. It's not hurting the people you're bitter against. You're drinking your own poison and you're allowing it to consume you. And there's only one person that's hurting, and it's you. And it doesn't mean that I don't struggle with this sometimes. I do. Trust me, I go through phases, but it just doesn't serve me. I heard a really powerful metaphor a while ago from my ultimate hero and GOAT, who's Tony Robbins. And one thing that he talks about is he talks about blaming effectively. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, Rory, or not, but what he says is he says, look, if you're going to blame somebody for all the crap they did to you and all the terrible things they did to you, you also have to blame them for everything that you learned from that and everything that that turned you into. So
Hmm.
that doesn't mean that you're excusing somebody who abused you. But what it does mean, and that you also have to blame them for helping you become a stronger person. And that was really powerful for me,
Yeah.
especially when thinking about my ex-wife or ex-girlfriend or ex whoever. If I'm going to blame them and sit here and try to be a victim saying, well, they're the ones that did everything wrong, I also have to blame them for helping me become the man that I am. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. And one day she's going to see this. Maybe she already has. I don't know, because I've said it on several podcasts. And I will say that even though with my ex-wife, it was the most difficult thing I've ever been through, and that's the hardest relationship I've ever had, and the most difficulty I've ever had getting through it. There is still no one on the planet that even holds a candle to everything I've learned from her. I've learned more from her, and I've become a better man more because of things that have happened from her. Not necessarily that that was her intention. Doesn't matter. There just isn't anyone even close to it Because when you go through difficult things and you work with different difficult people, if you're open to it, you're going to learn more from them than you ever will from somebody who's just loving and kind and on your side.
Wow. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. And I give you a lot of credit, just a ton of credit for being able to be that, enlightened about it. That's a tough one. It is. I know for a lot of guys that
It
I
is
talk
really
to,
tough. And
yeah, it's
again, I
tough.
need to preface with like this is not excusing any behavior. That's
Sure.
not the point. We're
Sure.
not saying that abuse doesn't happen or anything else. It 100% does. And if you're listening to this right now and you've been abused, I'm not telling you that I'm on the side of your abuser. That's not the point.
Of
The
course.
point is that if you're going to blame them for all the ways that they hurt you, you also have to blame them for what they taught you.
No, it's a
You
powerful
don't
way of
have to
looking
do
at it.
it,
Yeah.
but if
I
you
like it.
do it, you're going to be more empowered. You're going to have more power in your life. You're going to feel more freedom. And then, frankly, when you think about them, it's going to be a better experience, which again is only helping you, has nothing to do with them. You don't have to go tell
Right.
them all these things. This is for you.
Right. It's for you, your benefit, your use.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't
Absolutely.
have to call. I mean, you could take it to the extreme and call the person and blame them for everything. Sure. But you don't have to. This is mainly for you. This is for you to be empowered and to realize, like, look, they did all these things and it didn't hold me down. In fact, it actually made me stronger. It made me a better person.
Nice.
I'm far more caring and loving and considerate and open and authentic and a better dad and everything else because of this process that I went through, because of my divorce, because of my business failures, everything else than I was before. I was. So if a lot of that is because of a person, I got to blame the person for some of that. Because if I never met that person, I wouldn't have maybe learned that lesson.
Nice. So you've got a podcast also that you have in addition to the books. What do you do on the podcast? How does the podcast help? Is it educational? Is it advice? Do you bring people on? Let people know what they can expect when they tune into that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I've done several episodes myself, but 95% of the episodes are with guests. And it's the same topic. It's it was started as a way to help people deal with kind of failures and struggles real time. A buddy of mine and I started it together. He's no longer on the podcast, but we started it together because we're both in business and we both just get tired of all these people getting up on stage and talking about their billion-dollar company that they just sold and made all this money and everything else, and they had a failure 20 years ago. Like, tell me something that's going to help me right now. Like that's kind of inspirational, but honestly, it's kind of just shaming to me because all I think about is the fact that I haven't sold my company for $1 billion. And now it seems like you have no problems in the world, just like all the Instagram posts, right? So why don't you tell me about something you're going through right now? So the idea was, how about we be authentic and real with the problems, the things that we're going through right now, and actually help people through it, just like I help people through divorce. It's turned into really kind of more of a male focus, the same way as my coaching does, to where we bring on people that help men. We talk a lot about masculinity. We talk about a lot of difficult transitions like divorce. The guests that I have on the show are equally men and women. It's not more men than women because I love the female perspective on all these things as well. And yeah, we get with it. It's a lot of different topics, but the core idea is how, and again, it's called the Derelict Podcast, so
Yeah.
similar to all the other branding. And the idea is how do we deal with these failures, these struggles real time? How do we actually be authentic with it, not vulnerable because we don't want to take our power away? How are we authentic with it so that we can move forward and become a better version of ourselves?
Love it. I love what you're doing because you're not just helping people through divorce. You're helping them become better tomorrow than they are today. That's one of the things that we talk about here. I love the mission, the way you're laying it out. I really do.
Appreciate it, brother.
Let me just in interest of time, and you've given us a ton of time today, brother, and I appreciate that, very much.
Absolutely.
Um, I want to make sure that we're covering everything here for you though, because you've unpacked a ton today, and I think you and I could probably go back and forth about different aspects of post-divorce.
Oh, for sure. We could talk for another 4 hours. I already know just
Yeah,
based on this
we could probably
conversation.
drain a bottle between the two of us and
Yeah.
and just keep going. But as we go through this, is there anything that that I didn't ask you? Anything that maybe we touched on, but you want to make sure you're driving home about yourself, your mission, anything that you're doing, or something that you want to leave behind for everybody as we kind of pull things together here at the end. The floor is yours for the next few minutes, brother.
Sure. Well, So a couple things is I'll just give people a way to reach out to me if they want to have any
Absolutely.
additional follow-up questions, et cetera. And I'll offer something to your audience as well. So I mentioned that book, The Five Traps Men Face in Divorce and How to
Yeah.
Triumph Over Them. The best way is go to Instagram and message me on Instagram because I respond to all messages myself, not my team, not a VA, not an EA, myself. So follow me on Instagram. I'm Josh the Derelict, Josh the Derelict on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram, message me the word divorce, and I will send you that book for free. Or if you're interested in any sort of coaching or anything, feel free to message me the word coach. I'm happy to help. Or just send me a message. Just say, hey, really liked what you said on here, or hey, I disagree with what you said on here. I'm open to good, healthy conversation. The conversation I hate on social media, and I'm sure you relate to this as well, is like, I don't like your beard. Your hairline's receding. You're a simp. Like bullshit comments like that. Where I'm like, this is not doing like we're not having any conversation. I don't give a shit if you don't like how I look. Why don't you
Right.
tell me about like you're opinionated, you have a different opinion than me. Great. Let's have a dialogue about it.
Yeah.
Let's not just like attack each other for no reason. I don't like your nose. Okay. I don't care if you like my nose or not. Like, who cares? So let's have a dialogue. Like, if you disagree with something I said and you have a thoughtful thing to send me a message, I'd love to hear it. Some of my best conversations online have been people that have been respectful and come out and said, I completely disagree with your opinion. Here's the reason why, blah, 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 blah. Great. Now we can have a dialogue about it. I love
Right.
that. I have no problem with differing opinions. What I have a problem with is people that just decide to critique instead of create, that decide to be a critic instead of a creator. That's what I have a problem with. So people can reach out to me. But to answer your other question, I think the only thing that's really on my mind right now that I want to say to the men out there, especially if you are in that quote midlife man stage, right? You're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. We live in a world right now that often tells us that our masculinity is evil or toxic or chauvinistic or bad. And that the answer to that is to tap into our feminine selves. And I'm here to tell you that if you authentically are primarily a masculine man, then tap into that. Live in your authentic masculinity because there's nothing that's going to be better for the world than for you to be more authentically yourself. And don't allow society, women, men, whoever, to tell you otherwise because it's not true. Find a way to be as authentically yourself as you can be. Specifically, be okay with your masculinity. If you're a masculine man, be a masculine man. It does not mean that you have to be a toxic man. It does not mean that you have to go rule over things and destroy things and rape and pillage things. That's not a masculine man. Be a protector, be confident, be direct, do things, do what you say you're going to do, keep your commitments, and live that way. And I promise you, you're going to have a better life than if you're a chameleon like me for so many years and you're trying to just do what everybody else wants you to do.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And I'm glad that you brought all that up. I really am. That's a great way to end this entire thing. Brother, I love what you're doing. I really do.
Thanks, Rory.
It's a
Appreciate
huge
it.
gap in life, in the marketplace, where it's needed. And so, I mean, I hope a lot of people hear this. I hope that you have insane success with what you're doing. Men need help like this, and we don't even know it yet. So, as you move forward with all the education and talking to men and spreading your word, nothing but the best to you, brother, because you're authentic as hell. You really are the real deal. And anybody who spends 5 minutes talking to you knows that. And your heart is definitely in the right place. You know what I mean? And you can tell that too. So
Thanks, man.
it's been a pleasure getting to know you on here. Thank you for sharing everything that you did.
It's been a very big pleasure being on here as well, Rory. I mean, you clearly you hold yourself with a lot of respect and wisdom, and you ask great questions, and you're a great host. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for that. It means a lot. Appreciate it. Folks, that's another fantastic episode of the Power Man podcast. There's anything that I could close with, based on this conversation. There's a ton because Josh uh, unwrapped a lot. Uh, Josh Tomeoni on and everything that he stands for here. I'm almost at a loss for words because so much of this hit me personally today, and because I've been through it. I know a lot of you have been through it too. So let's end with this. Whether you're going through a divorce or not, a lot of what he talked about today is finding out who you are and finding out who your authentic self really is. If masculinity is something that you embody, that you need, that you encompass, lean into it. Stop being afraid of it. Quit being told by everybody that it's toxic and just stand up and be who you are. And the reason that I'm ending with that is because out of all the other things we could have talked about today, that one right there resonates because every one of you who listens to this podcast, y'all have value and you all matter. And I'm not sure that everybody knows that. At some point in my prayers, I hope that every one of you can find a way to believe it. Until next time.